I think the fact that the epicenter of where people like to think of themselves as the most hyper-rational, the most intellectually vanguardist, and the most committed to freeing themselves from unreason and bias and anything other than the pure intellectuality, is also the place which seems to be the most aboil with parties covered in Book of Revelations insignia and coders who are summoning demons and or who straightforwardly believe that that's what they're doing. And the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's a slightly alarming horseshoe theory, but that kind of looks that's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah, you really have that feeling that we are returning, we are approaching something ancient in the most bleeding edge of technology. As has been said before, we all kind of know Warhammer 40K is here, and we're just kind of picking our teams. I think to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much Paul Kingsnorth's argument in his recent book Against the Machine. I mean, he doesn't quite spell it out, but he more or less spells it out. He just thinks we're summoning Satan in the spirit of technology, the spirit of technicity, or something of that kind. I think he would more precisely probably say Auron as a personified one aspect of the demonic. But that's essentially the argument that he's making. That these actually what we're engaging with, in all of these technologies is not just lines of code. There's something else going on there. Again, I don't know what to make of all of that, but it's happening everywhere. Re-enchantment isn't some vague prospect of something that might happen. This is that event is in the rearview mirror. I think it happened during COVID. For me, that was the singularity already happened. This is so I'm writing a book at the moment. The working title is The King of the Swarm, and my starting premise is that the singularity already happened, and it happened specifically between 2007 and 2021, over a 14-year period between the launch of the first iPhone and the end of the COVID lockdowns. And that was the point where we transitioned from being still predominantly a print culture, albeit with other characteristics, to being fully digital first. And just everything is now going to be, everything is already different. I can only vaguely remember the before times. And you grew up in the before times as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Just I think we got the first internet connected computer in 5th or 6th grade.
Right. Right.
Right on the. Yeah. I remember when they used to give you the Apple II to take home because
That's
computers were so rare when I was in kindergarten that you had the computer that weekend.
That's right. And you and I are definitely the last generation who remembers the before times. And even for me, it's kind of hazy. I can only just remember what it felt like to not be permanently wired to the rage machine. And it has pros and cons. Here I am. It's a living. Yes. I'm genuinely broadly optimistic about the direction of travel. I think it's going to be a very bumpy ride. But the only way out really is through. We have to learn the hard way why certain things matter, including embodiment, including formal and final cause, including taking extreme care before you invoke anything that you don't know the nature of, stuff like that. Basic cognitive hygiene. But it's not as though you and I are the only people who are thinking about this. There's anybody who's both extremely online and has eyes and a functioning brain is thinking about this stuff. Because the alternative is probably schizophrenia, and nobody wants to go there.
Well, and I understand the irony always of two people discussing the dangers of technology across the planet on the internet. This is
absolutely it. I mean, even right. Paul will acknowledge that despite having just written a book called Against the Machine, he has to spend quite a lot of time plugged into the machine promoting it. Right. And this is you have to be completely upfront about the paradoxes in that. And the only way out is through. We have to learn the hard way, because the there's a certain amount you can do just on a sort of individual survival level by, you know, creating your wholesome community, or making sure you have a functioning kind of body discipline, which involves not scrolling literally 24/7. And all the rest of it. But at a collective level, we're just going to have to learn the hard way. And the same is going to go for all of those transhumanist technologies as well. I mean, you're right that the gender ideology thing isn't completely gone away. I mean, my hunch with that has always been that the vanguardist, activist identity stuff will die down, but that it's just going to get absorbed into a sort of general ideological campaign for freedom, what Martin Rothblatt, I should say, calls freedom of form, which is to say a generalized right to edit your own physiology. And it'll stop being about men in dresses, and it'll become about people who want to edit their physiology in any way they see fit. And that's just not going to be a sort of gender gobbling left-wing cause necessarily. It could even come from the right. In fact, I think it plausibly will come from the right.
The next one's going to be designer babies, in my mind.
Right, exactly.
That's going to be the real battle.
Exactly.
And you'll have people on the right pushing for it.
Yeah, that's absolutely coming from the right, because it's, you know, it scratches a certain eugenicist itch, which has always been latent amongst a certain kind of right-wing progressive. And again, the only possible way that you can answer this on its own terms is by blowing away the Noah Aquinas rule. Like you need to bring out the heavy artillery. You know, if you can't talk about, if you're going to assent to this sort of modernist claim that human nature doesn't exist because something operates razor or whatever, then you're screwed. Basically, you have nowhere to stand. You have no argument against designer babies ultimately. But the only possible cogent case against designer babies is on the basis that human nature actually is immutable, right. and we're created in the image of God. There is no other yes, there is no other sufficiently cogent reason to disagree with them. And I think, yeah, I mean that's why we're seeing people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali having serious conversations about Christian conversion in New York City with Richard Dawkins. You know, because there's a sense in which it's not possible to meet the kind of fundamental questions that we're now raising through AI and biotech unless we dust off theology. There's just no way of doing it. And so everyone's desperately scrabbling around in the old libraries for something which looks like it has any kind of a bearing on all of this. And actually there's loads there. Once you start rummaging, you realize it's all there. It's just all 500 years old, and we maybe need to update the language a little bit, but it all works.
Well, that's the thing that, you know, will blow people's minds pretty much every time they go down the rabbit hole is, you know, you're fed this idea, this chronological snobbery that by existing in a certain time and place that you are just far more intelligent. And then you read anyone from 500 years ago, and it's so clear that they are way more intelligent than kind of your average college professor today.